Clean living. It's more than a clean floor. It's a healthier home, healthier heart, healthier mind. Welcome to today's show. I'm Joe. I'm with Gordon today, Pastor Gordon Smith. Today we're doing an introductory episode, and hopefully you guys will stick around after this. So today we're going to just kind of introduce the company, the mission of this podcast, try to get to know me and a little bit about Pastor Gordon as well, and just how clean living is more than, like I said, more than just a clean floor or clean home. It's about a clean heart and mind as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
So welcome to the show. I hope you guys find something of value in this. We'll be throughout the podcast, we'll be giving some cleaning tips for your home and for your heart. Hopefully you'll give us grace, and like we try to give everyone else grace as well. Gordon, welcome today. I think I'm going to let you kick it off by interviewing me.
All right. Well, that sounds like a good idea. You and I have been good friends for a long time, and think the world of you, bud.
Thank
I
you.
think this is a good time for you to be able to kind of express some of your faith and also how good of a man you are and all those things. I know you don't think that sometimes, but you are. And so I'm really proud of you and really excited about you and these endeavors. If you can just tell us a little bit about how Sam I Am, how it's gotten started, what its background is, and why this is even important to you at this stage in your life.
Well, Sam I Am was founded by my father-in-law, Sam Hensley. He's a legend.
I'm sorry to hear
that. He started this business as a way to supplement his income. He had used it as a part-time job while he was working at Frito-Lay in Frankfurt, and he built it up to a company that could be a full-time job over the years, and he did it all by word of mouth and good work. He had done that for probably, I'm thinking about 16 years all together that he ran it. And he was talking about retiring, and I had worked with him off and on since 2012, I think.
Right.
I would take a vacation from my job at Dispatch during his busy time and help him clean carpets. That was my vacation. But I also was able to make some extra money that way, right. And I enjoyed it. It's a busy job. You're never just sitting around thinking, I want to go home. Right. You think about wanting to go home, but you're too busy. So I always enjoyed it. And when he started talking about retiring, I didn't want him to just sell it to anyone. No one in the family was interested. My wife or my sister-in-law, they had helped him growing up, and they didn't want to have anything to do with it. So he had told me wisely, and at first I was like, why do I need to quit now and come work with you? But Sam, he is a very smart guy. He is. He said you need to build these relationships and get to know the business even better. So I quit my job in May of 2018 and started working for him full time, meeting the people that we work with, learning the processes, and also working with some other people that were helping part time. So got to learn the business, and it was a wise decision that he made, and I'm glad that he did, because I couldn't imagine trying to take over the business not knowing everything that I did. So off and on. It's getting a little bit harder for him, which is
He's
surprising.
Still legendary, though.
When I first started, he could outwork me, no problem. I couldn't keep up with that guy.
Yeah.
But he just was nonstop, and carpet cleaning was a perfect job for him because he could stay busy, right, and keep his mind busy, keep his body busy, and he was good for it. So when I took over, Keith Brock was already working with us, and Keith's still with us to this day. I tried to carry on all the things that Sam had started. Right. I changed some chemicals. To me, they work really well. I tried not to change much of the process. Sam was big on his faith, and at the time, I really wasn't in my faith. When I first started back with him, I was off and on. I was probably a lukewarm Christian at that time. I knew of
He
Jesus.
won't let you stay
No,
lukewarm.
no, you got to make a stand.
You're gonna be cold or hot with
Yeah,
Sam.
yeah. So, and that was the great thing of working with Sam. And I wasn't going to church regular. My wife and I were just kind of in and out, and we couldn't get on the same page. But at one point, I remember just being like, I'm just going to go, and this is going to be a part of my life.
Right.
So Sam would always say, commit your works to the Lord, and He'll see that we prosper. And that was Sam's motto, and it still is today. Carpet cleaning is a way that we can meet people and have conversations and build relationships. So that's the beginning of Sam I Am, and today we're going on our 5th year of Sam being retired. So
yeah, he really did lay you a foundation, not only of a solid business pattern, a healthy business pattern, but also a solid faith for you. I mean, I know he's been influential, and probably talk more about that as we go through the thing. But so, what do you think sets apart Sam I Am from your average carpet cleaner out there?
Well, I think just the team that we have is one of the things that sets us apart. I've got Keith, who's working on the 5th year. Jordan's he had worked off and on for Sam for years. He's been with us going on his, I believe, 4th year.
Yeah.
Carpet cleaning companies in general have a high turnover. So I read anywhere from 20 to 30% turnover in a year. Wow. So if you're a small company, you could be turning your whole team over in a year. For us to have 3 guys that have been doing it as long as we have, it sets us apart. They know what to do. It makes us efficient at what we do. And their dedication and just the foundation that Sam built sets us apart from our competition.
And I'd even add to that if it is your ethical quality that comes with that. Like you're really, when I talk to you, you really weren't trying to do. I'll say these things because you don't probably want to say them, but the ethical quality of like, hey, I'm trying to do this for the Lord. I'm trying to do it. The ethical. I think you put Sam in there as like, hey, I don't want to let him down either.
Right.
Like I want to do this well, so he knows I love him and appreciate what he's done in my life, as the Lord has done. But this idea of really not just like we're doing a good job. We're also trying to help people rebound and get off the track, and that sets you apart as like almost like a ministry in that sense.
Right.
And I've seen Keith grow. I'm just so proud of him.
Yeah.
But a lot of that growth, if not 80% of that growth, just comes from being around you, Sam, and the business itself, and being able to keep a Christian focus. So I think that sets you apart in a huge way from your average business in that.
And I think Sam's seen it as a ministry as well. I talk about it, I think, next week's episode, because we're recording this backwards.
Right.
If it's not mutually beneficial for the people who work with us, our customers, everybody's got to win. And if there's a guy who's been down on his luck and had some rough history, we're not going to overlook them because of that. And if we can help them come along as well, everybody wins.
Yeah, and you take it seriously. I mean, I think you take it seriously, not just you don't just say, oh, okay, we need some help, we're going to take you on. Is there sort of a process of kind of like trying to determine where are we at? Are we really on a serious taking a step forward?
Right.
And we want to help that. And I really have seen so many ways in which the Lord, just knowing you as a friend and watching the business, how God has used that to take people and move them forward in their faith. So now, okay, what would you like the customers to know that seems that about you, Sam I Am?
I would say that we're dedicated to doing the best job possible. Another thing would be that we're a trustworthy organization. We're not looking to get over on anyone. We're trying to help people. We have a job to do, and we are trying to make a profit. But I tell people all the time, I'm not trying to retire off of you. I'm looking to build a relationship.
Sure. Yeah.
to where every time you need your carpet cleaned, you just call us and we're there for you. This business is carpet cleaning, but it's really more about relationships. If people know that they can depend on us to be there. Now, there's things that are outside our control, the
Sure.
weather being one
Yeah.
of them. But typically, we don't have to reschedule appointments. So if we make the commitment to be there, barring weather, we're going to be there. We try to work with people as much as possible and just build those relationships. So that's what keeps us going. And Sam started all that with the relationships. I mean, you can't go anywhere with that guy without him knowing
Somebody.
someone.
Yeah, I know. He knows everybody.
He
I know.
does.
I know. But I would say too. I mean, just uh, you really do have a heart to serve,
Yeah.
and I would say your staff, those people working for you, and you have this heart just to serve people. And so I don't. When you do the business, there may be time it feels like I'm doing my job, right? And there's times we have to do that. But I always get a sense that you really you're like, I want to serve him. I want to serve the Lord, right?
Right.
And that's first and foremost. And then second is like, but you have a natural, I just want to serve people. And I want to, so I don't think that when you go out to carpet clean, I don't see it as like, let's just get this job done. I need to get it done. But like, hey, I want to really serve the Lord in
Right.
this somehow. So I see that in you guys. And I think customers would be blessed in that, your servant attitude and stuff.
Yeah. We work with a lot of apartment complexes, and uh, I had a company send me a check. I think it was like $95, and I had I just separate the check from the pay stub, and I deposited it, and then I don't know. It was a busy season, so a few days later, a week or two, I
Yeah.
don't even know how long, but I go back to receive the invoices, and I'm like, this isn't my check. This is not my invoice number.
Yeah.
So the company had mailed me somebody else's, another vendor's check. Well, I go to the property and I take the stub and I said, hey, I was paid incorrectly. I need to figure out how to fix this.
Yeah.
And they're like, I can't believe you're even in here telling us this, and I'm like, well, I wouldn't feel right taking somebody else's money,
I know.
and I'm like, yeah, what do I need to do to correct this? So, things like that, there's integrity, trust. We're an honest company, and I would think that would be one area I would probably really have to put my foot down if somebody didn't have integrity and honesty working with us. So.
Yeah, agreed. I'm currently the pastor over at Frankfurt Church of the Nazarene. We've known each other for going on 7 years roughly now and stuff, and you've really become one of my best, if not my best friend. Just we've had good conversations with you and me, but I'm just going to start back with testimony, kind of start back in there. I think that's the easiest. But growing up, I was a pretty good kid. My dad. I was a Marine. We grew up I grew up as a kid for the military and stuff, and loved it, everything about it. And then after we graduated, we moved out to Virginia. I started getting in the wrong crowd and started drinking. And then after I started drinking, I began to do drugs, and then just kind of just toppled. I just was in a band, thought I was going to be cool, and it was nothing really. And I still had a little work during those times. Still got promoted for things. I don't know how I did it. And those were some real struggling times, and all my value systems that my parents taught me, I'd kind of gotten rid of. And while I was there in Virginia, one of the things that the drugs and the alcohol were really starting to consume me to where I was not taking care of anything very well, and life had gotten really, really bad in one sense, where just everything was collapsing. My relationship with a girlfriend, my friendships, everything, and I was just consumed by the alcohol. And I remember one night I was like, "Hey, I'm gonna go, and I'm just gonna get drunk and high as I possibly can." And there was this party where one of my rich friends had, was just providing everything. So you didn't have to buy anything, It sounded like a good thing for me. And I went, to that party, and stayed up to like 4 in the morning there and just drank. But I got in my car and drove home, which obviously is a bad thing, right?
Right.
As I was driving home, um, I ran into the back of a cab. Um, and as I hit the back of that cab, I can vaguely still even remember it. And I remember a guy coming up and yelling at me um, to my window, and I just drove on, right? And went home. I don't know how I got home safely. Got home. I still had to be at work at 7 o'clock.
Right.
Somehow I still got up, went to work, and I was still somewhat high, you know what I mean, from
Yeah.
everything, and not completely sober, but my boss didn't seem to care those things too much as long as I was there, right?
Right.
And it wasn't until about noon that day that I was like, oh my word. I just like ran into the back of a car and left the scene. I had no insurance at the time either. And I was like, what am I gonna do? You know? And so I just kind of put it off in the back of my head, slowed down a tad. I mean, I didn't stop. I slowed down a tad. You think you just stop, you know? And about 2 weeks later, I get this call from this detective who says, "Hey, we just were wondering if you might know what might happen at this particular scene tonight, and it was an accident, and wondering if you could come in and talk about a couple things." And I said, "Sure," and we scheduled it out. I'm not stupid, you know. I'm like, dude, they know. And I'm driving so the next day, as we scheduled, I was driving into the detective, and I'm going to talk to him. And I sit down, and all the way over there, I kept asking, because I had a guy witnessing to me at work at that time. And I was like, what would God want me to do? And I was like, he just want me to tell the truth. I mean, I wasn't saved. I didn't know the Lord.
Yeah.
And I get there, and the detective asks one question. I just spill the whole beans, right? I think he was disappointed because, like, he was good at what he did, you know. He was like seemed disappointed, but I just spilled the whole beans, told him everything, and he says, "Well, I'm going to try to make this as easy as possible, but you're going to need to get a lawyer. You're going to have to go," and he scheduled the court date out. Well, I started falling a real deep depression during that time. Felt like I shamed my family. You know,
Yeah.
my dad, he's a good man. You know, I'd cry myself to sleep like almost every night, curled up in a ball. I still went out and drank and did drugs, stupidest thing ever do. You know, but I was real depressed. And one night I called my dad, tell him what was going on. My mom, dad, and not sure what they were going to say. And my dad said, "I'm proud of you." And I was like, proud of me? I'm like, stupidest man in the world right now. You know what I mean? And my dad said, he says, well, a real man takes responsibility for his life and his mistakes.
Right.
And so I'm proud of you for that. My dad wasn't a Christian at the time, but boy, God was using him to set the stage of repentance for me.
Right.
I still would cry myself to sleep almost every night, felt ashamed, but at least I knew they were behind me, you know.
Yeah.
Well, as the date came to approach for the court date, I was getting more and more nervous, and I was still doing drugs and still drinking. Alcohol was really the one that really was the hardest for me. That was the one that was always turning me down. Um, and but I can remember, and my friend at work kept inviting me to his church. I can still remember the last time I took a drink of alcohol, and I went to this bar. I was going to get drunk again with all my friends, and we were hanging out. And I remember getting the glass, and I feel in this discussion of everything was just, and I just remember thinking, there's just got to be something better than this, you know. And I was like, what am I doing? And I just got up and walked out. I was going to go to my friend's church the next day. Um, and so I went home that night, and I went into church the next day, and the friend had been witnessing me was like almost like shocked, like didn't even know what to do. Right. Didn't expect me to be there. And it was an all black church, and those folks just loved on me. But man, I felt a real sense of conviction during the sermon, and almost went down to the altar to get saved, and I didn't. I didn't. But then the next day when I went into work, my friend who had been witnessing to me, he says, "So what did you think?" And I just start telling him like, "Hey, I was almost down at the altar." And he says, "Hey, man, you don't have to come to know to Jesus just at an altar. There, you can do it anywhere." Still didn't repent that day, but that Tuesday, the next day, the Lord just kept,
Yeah.
or He just kept pounding me, in a good way, His love. And I went home that Tuesday night. I got down at the foot of my bed. And I said, "Man, I don't know how to do this." I said, "Every time I take control of it, it's all messed up." And I said, so I just asked for forgiveness from the Lord and got saved. After that, I still had to go to court, but I didn't have a lawyer.
Yeah.
So I didn't have enough money. I was pretty broke, and I went to the court, and the court says, "Hey, we're gonna throw you in jail if you don't get a lawyer." So I did, and I had this putting out another month. And my friend at work, he says, "Well, maybe the lawyer's just trying to see, like, is this going to be real or not? You just need a quick fix." And it was probably the best thing I ever had to have that month of, like, what are we going to do here? So I'd go show up at this church, and I was still smoking, had my cigarettes, and I'd go show up, and the people just loved on me. And but I can remember the Wednesday night before I had to go to court on Thursday in January of '98, and I went in there, and Kenny Baldwin Jr. is preaching. He's a young guy, and I remember sitting in the pew and him like leaning out towards me, and he says, "Maybe you need to wrestle with God."
Right.
And I was like looking around, like, how does he know? I said, "Did you say something?" I didn't say anything. I'm like, how does this guy know everything that's going on in my life? I got out of that service, and I got in my car, and I drove around DC for hours, just wrestling with God. And I was scared.
Yeah.
And I said, "But whatever you think is good that will keep me in the faith, I'm all for it."
Right.
Because I've already screwed up enough. And so the next day I went to court, and the judge kind of comes, and the judge gave one for me. They basically said, "We're going to give you 10 years. If in 10 years nothing else happens, it'll be expunged as if it never happened." And I was like, "Oh, that's the glory of God."
Right.
Yeah. But I'll try to go a little bit faster. I don't want to take up too much time.
No, that's okay.
But after I felt a call to become a pastor fast right afterwards, but I didn't know what that meant exactly, and I didn't want to jump the gun, because I was real emotional. I didn't want to jump the gun and assume on that, and so I ended up sensing to go back to New Mexico, where my dad had retired from the military, to go back there, and so I went back home there. And I didn't put the calling on the back burner, but I kind of was like, I told the Lord I wanted to mature in my faith before I started trying to pursue preaching and all those kind of things. So I kind of asked Him to help me with that. So it was kind of a few years. I started meeting my wife during that time, my now wife, Stephanie. And during that time, I had several people approaching me as I was trying to figure out who to become, what to do, about. And I just could never get away from this calling that God had called me to be a pastor, and not just a preacher, but a pastor. I told my wife when we started dating, and she was my sister's best friend. I said, "Look, if I really sense that God's calling me to be a pastor, and you're going to kind of have to want to do that."
Right.
I said, "I just don't think it would work otherwise. It's not for everybody."
And, special person.
Yeah, it does.
To be a pastor's wife.
Well, and her friends constantly told her, like, you're going to marry a pastor, which is what's funny. And she is. She's been just phenomenal for me, patient with me, and willing to help me to become a better man, and I think a better pastor in that. But we went off to school. I pastored my first church in Oklahoma, a little place called Dewey Church of the Nazarene, and it was that was we enjoyed that. And then I was feeling a little bit inadequate, went back to Albuquerque as an associate, but I just knew I was called to be a senior pastor, and I just didn't really enjoy that for the time. It really was nice and good. And then I went and pastored in La Junta, Colorado for a while, and that went well too. But it was kind of in the middle of nowhere, I don't mean that as a slight, but my Stephanie was probably, it felt lonely there. And then when we were searching to come, then when I felt like God was leading us on, Indiana was not even on the plate. You know what I mean? It wasn't even on the wish list.
Right.
It's not generally the place you go like, dream places to live.
Right.
But now, so in 2018, we came out to interview here, and I, I've just loved here.
Yeah.
I've loved the congregation. I feel like who I am and who the people are fits.
Right.
Um, uh, I can be genuine. I can just be me. I think we genuinely have people who love each other, and so I would say right now, knock on wood, or but I think right now, I think is probably I'm enjoying ministry the most that I've ever enjoyed.
Yeah. And we really do. I'm a little biased because I go there as well, but I grew up in church, and actually the Nazarene church just down the road about 30 miles from where I go now, but um I had friends there. I was a teenager. I grew up there, but just seeing the connection that our church has,
Yeah,
the love for people. I mean, it doesn't matter what your circumstance is. If you come in, somebody's going to talk to you, and
yeah,
not necessarily because
not
I'm
overwhelm you.
right.
Yeah,
I'm an introvert, so I don't
yeah,
really like that stuff. Uh, but it's not aggressive. It's not
yeah,
overwhelming. But you're going to be seen,
yeah,
and you'll know that you were seen. You're not going to just come in and disappear into the background.
yeah,
Somebody will see you and say hi, and point you in the direction you need to go. And I think that's what makes our church special.
yeah,
Um, it's it's funny listening to your testimony. I mean, I kind of that's probably why we get along well.
yeah,
I have a similar background.
yeah,
Alcohol was always my issue, and it's just crazy that I would have never ended up in Frankfort, Indiana, had my life not fallen apart
yeah. Me
before that.
too. We wouldn't even know each other if it
Yeah.
wasn't for the
Uh,
Lord's grace.
I look back, and I wouldn't have met my wife had I not come to Frankfort, Indiana. I wouldn't have met Sam. And looking back now and seeing where I was before I came here and where I am now, I'm like, every step was God ordained,
Yeah,
and
amen.
even though I wasn't following, he was giving me some grace and mercy before I got here,
Yeah,
to follow him. I think, well, we've all struggled, and I think when you struggle like that, and
mm,
you have a pastor with real life experience who wasn't just the perfect person
yeah. Although
all
you
of his
tease me
life.
about that all the time.
You have since reached perfection, but that's one of the things that made me want to come to the church is after I talked to you and then sitting through your sermons and just seeing your heart for the people and
Yeah,
I think that's another thing we share is a
yeah.
heart for people. We just carry it out in different ways. What would be your practical advice for clean living? I know we have clean carpet, and then we have also a spiritual
Mm.
uh, need for cleanliness.
I think some practical advice is that we're all searching for things that we think will make us happy. I mean, we just talked
Right.
about this last week, but I think everybody's searching for something that makes them feel content or a purpose
Right.
or value. And until you know you're valued by God, it's really hard to really do anything because every time you fail, then
Right.
you're like, well, I'm not right with God, right? The kind of things. I mean, I had somebody say something years ago who I was witnessing to, and she was struggling with whatever it was in her life, and I was inviting her to church, and she said, "I need to get some things right before I go to church." And I said, "Well, don't hear this wrong. I'm not trying to correct you, but it doesn't work that way. You got to let Him get right with you,
Right.
not you get right with Him." because I think what people are doing in clean living is we think of ourselves like, well, I'm a pretty good person if I compare myself to the next person down
Right.
there, right? I don't never did drugs, or I didn't. I do some pretty much honest things, right? But until we are seeking Him and we know our value comes from Him, I don't think practical living is all that practical,
Right.
because you're searching for something to, either to say I'm better than everybody else, right? Which the Pharisees didn't go too well for them
Right.
on that, and then, or I'm not good enough,
Mhm.
so I might as well not even try, right? And I think you and I were probably there at some point.
Right.
Where you kind of were like, you kind of a give up kind of an attitude, and really the as Sam always says, the course, the steady course really is coming from your value. So I would say that really it's the value and your purpose has to come from God before any other practical living can take place.
Right.
And until that takes place, all other attempts are going to fall short on there.
I had heard on a podcast this just a couple days ago, the Unashamed podcast with guys from Duck Dynasty. One of them said, and it really stuck out to me. I believe it was Jace, but he was talking about how Jesus had not only taught us how to live, but he taught us how to die.
Mm.
And he said, if you fear God, you don't have anything to fear because death isn't going to overcome us. We overcome death. But if you don't fear God, you have everything to fear.
Yeah.
And I look at my life and yeah, that's how it was. I was afraid of everything, and that's why I drank. I
Yeah.
was afraid of my choices always turning out bad. And I think when you finally realize everything you've done, it hasn't worked the way it should have.
Right.
You start to think, well, maybe I should look for another way. Otherwise, you're just gonna.
Yeah.
It's never gonna end. You're gonna be in a cycle of bad decisions and unfulfilling life. Like you said, you're constantly looking for that thing to make you feel whole, but that thing is not
Yeah.
a thing. It's a person. It's Jesus
Right.
that will make that happen.
Well, an illustration I use in my baptism class sometimes, we're talking, I actually use Sam. Sorry to get the plug. I'll send you the bill on it. But one of the things I say is, when we're talking about being cleansed from the Lord, I said, like I said, blot out my transgressions, right? And I said, now imagine if Sam I am came in to clean the carpet, right? And they came in and they just covered it over it and
Right.
didn't cleanse it. I said, you would be like, I'm kind of a little upset, right?
Right.
And I said, what his job is to do is to come in and cleanse it, right? And God is not, kind of think of yourself as like going to the car wash or something like that to get it clean. Like, you can all day clean the outside of a brand new truck, get the chrome, all kinds of stuff
Right.
like that, and then open it up and McDonald's are pouring out.
Right.
And it isn't, and like God's trying to do the power wash on the inside rather than the outside. And so what we do is we sort of make ourselves look on the outside of what it means to be clean and practical living. We start on the outside and hope that it trickles in. When God says, no, you start on the inside,
Right.
I can help you on the outside begin to put into things of practice that really you could never do on your own. And,
Right.
and really is His grace. So who are we really?
Yeah.
Without Him, I mean, we'd all be just continuously messed up. But He's the one that helps us start. Even you got to have the Spirit of God living in you before you can even really start to live it out practically.
Yeah. I was just talking to a family member on Friday, and they're going through some stuff, and they're not 100% sure, but they went to church with one of my other relatives.
Yeah.
They're starting to think, well, maybe there is something more to life. Maybe what I've been doing hasn't been working.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what do you have to lose at this point? What are you going to lose?
Right.
You're going to have a peace of mind that's going to be better than anything you have now. I mean, I remember the days of drinking. I would blackout drink every time almost. And then the bad thing about it, it wasn't completely erased from my memory because the next day I'm having flashbacks of what happened, and then the regret would sit in to where now I can lay my head down every night and go to sleep, and I don't have something popping up in my mind that I did that I didn't remember.
Yeah.
And it's amazing what can happen if you just get out of your own way.
Yeah, and I was thinking this too. Like sometimes we look, but so talking about that cleansing out, like we think, well, I come to Jesus, and then He blots it out, and then voila,
Yeah.
I become a clean Christian, right?
Right.
But I think it's just the beginning of what
Right.
He's trying to do. And I tell people all the time, I said, if you'll just commit 5 years,
Right.
and I'm not talking about like a half commitment. And I'm like, you'll put everything into it. Love the Lord with all of your heart. Seek His commands. Listen to Him, and go. And even where you fail, as He works you to continually get better. That if you look 5 years from now, you'll go, oh my word, I don't even know who that guy was.
Right.
And because I look back now and I'm like, what, 20 some odd, 7 years somewhere in there, saved, and I go look back and I go, I don't even recognize that person.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a whole different person. But then I look and I go, man, I have so much growing to do still.
It's a process.
Yeah, it is. So I think if like it's like in clean living, it's willing to just humble yourself. He really does know what's best about life, and whether that's whatever that is that we try to hold on to a sin or say, well, we're going to try to do it another way.
Yeah.
But if we'll just humble ourselves to it, we do find the peace and the joy as God grows us in His faith over time.
I just speaking to that relative, he had said, I've just seen what's been done in your life, and he's proud of me and things like that. And I'm like, that's all God, because I was in charge for the first 30 some years since I finally surrendered. That that's him. I mean, because I have proof of what my life looked like before Jesus, and what it looks like after, and I'm like, it's not me, because me, I'd always find a way to mess it up, thinking I was trying to get ahead or do better. I was always able to maintain a job and work my way up
I
every
think we
time.
have that familiar. Like I think we were able to like somehow hold it together and still get promoted during those times.
Functioning alcoholics.
Right.
But yeah, it's crazy that you can have clean living, whether it's your home or your spiritual life, if you just surrender and let God do that work. And it's a process. You're constantly growing and learning new things. I mean, God's always revealing something new that, you could get better on. But that's the one thing I want to make sure people understand is we're not perfect still, and we're not judging the people who don't believe the way we do. We would love for everybody to believe the way we do. And if you want to talk about it, we'd be more than willing to talk about it. But we try to live it more importantly, and if I say one thing and do another, it's not going to be very effective. So that's what I tell the guys, just live like we're called to live, and hopefully people will see that, and if they find a need to ask questions, then we'll be more than happy to share. So just being honest here, I've struggled with being convicted to talk about my faith as a small business owner, because one, I think people may try to cause trouble, use that against you. I not worry, but I think about it. I don't want to turn anybody off from using Sam I Am, but at the same time, I got to be true to who I am. What would be your advice for a small business that's trying to be led by Christ? I mean, we still get in the way every now and then.
Well, stay humble. I think that's the first. And I always get that from you already. I mean, I think as a friend, I think usually I'm trying to uplift you, and you're trying to uplift me, and maybe that's why we're good friends. I think when you're doing for a small business, you're trying to express your faith, is to be humble in the midst of that, to not be afraid, but to know your timing.
Yeah.
Also, I think this opens up the door, but I've never really sensed that you're like overly pressing people. I
Right.
think sometimes people sometimes looking for answers. I don't know where to turn, and it can be in this. I mean, you've had experiences out there where you start talking to somebody, and somehow faith just gets brought up, and all of
Right.
a sudden you realize somebody's hurting, and like
Right.
all of a sudden you're ministering to somebody, and here you were trying to just to clean. But I think just being humble to the Lord really comes down to that. That's my advice on it. Is um, remember your roots, remember
Yeah.
where you came from, the person that you're going to serve. They may be broken right now, and they may be hurting, or they may be in often sin like we once were.
Right.
And instead of seeing them as oh, get your life together,
Right.
it's more like, hey man, I was there,
Yeah.
and I want you to get your life to experience some of the things God's been doing in my own life and stuff. But just stay real and keep it humble. You know what I mean. Be honest. Make sure it's all about the Lord, nothing else. And I always, even as a pastor, I think to myself, like at the end of the day, I just want the Lord to be pleased with me.
Right.
And if that's always the goal, then you let chips fall where they fall,
Yeah.
and you just got to keep doing that. Because there may be a reason the Lord's kind of asking you to do some of these things, even if it's just for a couple people, maybe.
Right.
Who knows?
Right.
That it's out there. But if you make Him the main audience, I think the Lord can use your business, your life, everything, if He's always the main audience.
Right. Yeah, and that's definitely good advice. I mean, we deal with, you know, all kinds of people, and we've had good experiences. Guys, they always kind of, especially Keith, he loves to talk. So
Yeah, He's good
yeah,
at it. He's
and
good at like what He does out there.
he's very relational
Yeah,
with people, and um, I've had them tell me about times they prayed with people that they were cleaning for. They had a great conversation with somebody. Or Keith had one example. He was telling me he was talking to a maintenance guy, and they're like, I don't believe in God and this and that. And Keith's like, I just had to stop and be like, listen, this is my story. This is what I've been through, and this is what God's done for me. He's like, you may not believe, but I'm telling you, I'm proof that lives can be changed, and
yeah,
that there's somebody bigger than us out there. And so I also, when I feel convicted to do it, I need to do it. And then when I start to worry about what somebody may say, I got to remember that He's still going to take care of me no matter
yeah,
what I go through. He's
yeah,
gonna take care of me.
yeah. And a constant prayer. I mean, you hear me pray this even when I'm preaching and those kind of things, but like the constant prayer of um, help me to say the things you want me to
Right.
say, and help me not to say the things that I don't need to say right now.
Right.
Because sometimes it's balancing who we are and ourselves in that. Trying to be attuned to His Spirit is really the crucial part in relationships and everything.
Right. Yeah, and I tell everybody I need all the help I can get running this business. I don't have all the answers for everything, and just being humble to know that helps me
Yeah,
kind of try to stay in His will, because I do want Him to be pleased with what we're doing, whether it's cleaning carpets or just how I interact with somebody
yeah,
else. I think we've pretty much covered the guiding principles.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's just there's no getting around it. We have a way of life, and it works for us, and I hope other people find it. Um, whether it's through a podcast or just working with us, or having us clean their home, and we want to make that impact every day.
yeah,
And Tozer talks about having sacred and secular,
yeah,
and we're trying to kind of bring that together in
yeah,
every day in what we do, whether it's the guys that are working with us lifting them up, because we do struggle at times. We
Yeah.
do have things that kind of rock your world and make you wonder, what, am I on the right path? Am I
Yeah.
doing the right thing? Is there God? Fortunately, I think now I don't question that like I
Yeah.
used to. It's hard to wrap your mind around
Yeah.
a God of the universe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is. It is.
and
Yeah.
the Bible stories, I'm like just starting to realize that, a childlike faith is
Yeah.
reading it and just saying, all right, I trust you
Yeah.
that this is right and this is what it is.
Yeah.
And I don't need to have all the answers right now. So with Sam's start of the business and then the faith, I mean, that just gives us a pretty good foundation. I mean, to be over 20 years in business, like I said, Sam didn't do any advertising until I came on in 2018. We didn't have a Facebook, we didn't have a Google page, none of that. So he built a really successful business just by word of mouth and hustling.
Yeah.
And we try to continue to do the hustle and the relationship, but trying to introduce some modern technology to the business.
Yeah. I find the challenge of our world is to keeping the relational. Like I tell people all the time, I love preaching. I love doing that. Pastoring people is far more important to me, right?
Right.
And I think at the end of the day, I think that's what God is going to be like. I want to hear, well done, and good and faithful servant. It's these
Right.
relationships. And the hard part we have today is that disconnect from the relational side.
Yeah.
These are means that we can use without disconnecting ourselves from the personal. Because at the end of the day, we still want somebody to come up alongside of us, cry with us,
Yeah.
hurt with us, forgive us,
Yeah.
because we're not all perfect people. And that day by day relationship. And so the world is sort of working the opposite of relational development right now. It's working against
Right.
us coming together. That I can do this on my own, and we have to sort of fight against that. Sometimes like pastoring, I'm like, you know, uh, did I help that person move forward in their faith? But where the biggest impacts take place, I think impact can happen from a sermon, right? That's part
Right.
of discipleship, right? But where the biggest impacts come is when one-on-one in an office walking through somebody, or
Right.
you go to their home and just walk side by side. And that's where the big impact takes place. And it's still personal,
Yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah. Sunday's sermon, out in the foyer before the sermon, Drake and I
Yeah.
were talking, and he was telling me what'd been going on with him and
Yeah.
things he had been thinking about. And,
Yeah.
we were having a conversation. And then during the service, you were preaching, and I'm like, this is stuff Drake and I were just talking about. And I'm like looking around trying to find him. Well, after right at the end of the service, I finally found him, and I look over, and he's looking at me, and he's shaking his head.
The Lord, the funny thing, what's funny about the Lord, getting off topic a little bit, but the thing about the Lord that He does is, like, I was on Friday, I had already had the outline, I'd written it on a Friday, I think it was, and I had this outline, and I was like, I got home and stuff, and it was like, why are you like? I was not irritable, but I was like, kind of tense. I said it needs to go back in the oven for a little while. The sermon. I said it's not ready. I said, like, all the ingredients are in there, but the center is not cooked.
Right.
I said it's still cold. It hasn't cooked all the way. And I said all the outside's fine. And I said, and I was wrestling with it all day Saturday. And it was finally somewhere on Saturday, in the midst of God kind of uh, convicting me. How the Lord has a way of doing that. Because I was like, I'm going to preach on happiness. And I was like, He's like, you're awfully unhappy this morning. you know? And and it was and during that, and then finally I was like, sort of the end of that Saturday. I went in earlier than usual, and I had changed the last 2 points to shift in that, and because I felt like the Lord kind of outlined to me different. and said, one of the things I thought it needed to be a point, God was like, no, that's for a whole nother day, that, kind of thing. But, and that's the thing I think with the Lord, that whether it's in your business, whether it's in a sermon, God is working in the details of our life in a way that, like, you go, like, oh, man, how does the Lord know
Right.
that, and working through our personalities. I'm thankful that, like, God convicts us. Like, I don't see
Right.
conviction as a bad thing. I see it as like the Lord kind of going, and if we're listening, all those things go back to that cleaning. Like, it's that process of just continuously getting better with the Lord, and it doesn't happen overnight.
No.
It takes time to do it. But He's patient with us.
Right.
More than we deserve.
Yeah.
By far.
He definitely is. So going forward, we're going to have a little bit of everything. Next week we have Keith on, and get to hear about his story, a little bit about the carpet cleaning business, some pro tips. The following week we've got Zach Golden from Golden Light Ministries on. He had recently taken off for Ecuador, and just looking to support him and bring awareness to that. Each week I'm going to try to give some practical tips, advice. So if you have a question on cleaning, on faith, whatever it is, I may not know the answer, but I'll get back to you. We'll try to address it on upcoming episodes. I'll leave the links in the description for the website or Facebook page. I also will be putting a 10% discount code in there for the month of February for any carpet cleanings or upholstery. Yeah. So, this podcast has got to be mutually beneficial for the listeners and for us. I can tell you from the first 3 episodes I've done, I've been blessed.
Yeah.
I get to talk about 2 things I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
About carpet cleaning. It's rewarding work. I've done a lot of things that and worked with people that I wouldn't have met had I not been doing this job. So I do that, and I get to talk about the Lord and the ways He's cleaned my life up. And to me, it's beneficial in so many ways. I mean, I've got 3 older kids and I've got 3 younger kids, and they've had completely different dads.
Yeah.
And I feel bad for my older kids that I wasn't on this path when they were little, but I'm trying to correct that with my younger children. And I want them to have some clean living as well. And do what I can for my older 3 kids now, and just being a dad that can be there for them. So it's a little bit of everything in this podcast. I just want to go where people want to listen and get something out of this. So hopefully everyone has. And if you're in need of carpet clean, give us a call, 765-327-8828, or you can book online. There's several different ways. Also, if you are needing spiritual cleaning and you're in the Clinton County, Carroll County, Boone County, North Central Indiana area, come to Frankfort First Church of the Nazarene and see Pastor Gordon. You'll see me. You'll see Keith. You can meet the legend Sam.
Yeah. Legendary.
Yeah. He's a character.
Yeah.
But and you'll know Sam if you do stop at the
He'll
church.
be one of the ones stopping you.
Yeah. He'll make sure to introduce himself. But I appreciate your time and your friendship, and it's always good when I get a chance to sit down and talk with you. You're a pretty busy guy. You got a lot of people you shepherd. And
no, I just want to tell you I love you, man. And thanks for showing grace to me. We talk about perfect. I'm not one, but I appreciate your friendship. We've always just the grace you've shown to me over the years too. I mean, and just being able to be true and be a friend, walk through the ups and downs.
Yeah.
Sometimes just having a listening ear. I appreciate you, and I love you, man.
Love you too. So like, subscribe, share it. whatever you can do to help us, it would be greatly appreciated, and look forward to talking to you guys next week.